Berkeley, California. What is good? Woo. It is a delight to be back in this kind of hometown of mine. I lived here for 7 months and it was wonderfully delightful. I lived right by the Ashby BART stop. It was fun. There was a drive-by shooting on my street on 4th of July once. It was great. But I had a lovely time when I lived here. Oh God, was it almost 10 years ago? Oh my God, oh no, I'm so old. But it was way back in the day where cream ice cream sandwiches only cost $3. And I went to work uphill both ways in the snow. But it's a delight to be here back in the East Bay. And of course, just the way that things line up always, just the gods are looking over me when I make these episodes that, of course, we have some very East Bay relevant chapters tonight, which was not planned at all, so don't give me any sort of credit. I was just reading them and I was like, oh, nice, cool, so that'll be relevant. So I'm happy to be here in the East Bay to cover these East Bay chapters. It will be very fun, but as always, I will be joined by a special guest. So please make some noise for our guest. You might know him from the game show stuff he does for work or the game show stuff he did for years on our Patreon. Make some noise for Kevin McKain. Oh, I could have done that. That's very nice.
It's okay. It's okay. I got you, Mike. I know how to turn laptops around.
Thank you. You're very skilled. That's why you meet the qualifications. How's it going?
It's a going.
Why don't you tell everyone your history with the Percy Jackson books, but then also Heroes of Olympus specifically?
Absolutely. So I was growing up in that perfect era where it was starting to come into fashion as I got too old for it, but
sure,
I read it. I read the Percy Jackson and the Olympians, and then I met this guy named Mike Schubert, and he ran a podcast, and I started helping him with stuff, and then rumors started spreading about hey, maybe this will be the next one.
And I like to imagine it like Shams and Woj in the NBA are sources say Mike Schubert's running out of stuff to cover on Potterless.
See, the issue is I knew that you were running out. I mean, it was a few years out, but
yeah.
We had talked about it. And so it was one of those things where it was oh, people are suggesting this. It sounds like people want to do it. Mm-hmm. So I started rereading it yearly. Because that's what you do when your friend says, hey, I'm going to make a podcast about this thing. And so I started rereading it yearly. I read all of it as a kid, as it was coming out. And this is my first time rereading through the Heroes of Olympus series, which is really fun because I've forgotten everything that took place in Heroes of Olympus. Because there's been some years.
Sure, you've lived a life.
I have.
But now you can't spoil me on stuff.
No.
The trapdoor's intact, so don't do it. Before we get into this chapter, though, because we're going to be covering chapters 33 and 34, I did write down something in my notes of hey, if you need something at the top to banter about. So one funny thing with the East Bay that I remember, when I lived here, it was, like I said, I think I moved in late 2014, moved out early 2015. And I worked in Rodeo, California, at an engineering plant, steel-toed boots, hard hat, the whole thing, fire-resistant clothes. But I lived in Berkeley. And then there were other people who were kind of taking over my work rotation, and they were going to work in the same area. And I distinctly remember when I was looking for places here near Rodeo, someone was like, don't live in Stockton. It's kind of seedy. Or was it Stockton? Richmond. They were like, don't live in Richmond. It's kind of seedy. And then I remember by the time I was moving out 6 months later, the people who were going to take over the position, they're like, there's this great up-and-coming town called Richmond. And I was like, this place got gentrified in 6 months? What is happening? So it's wild. But anyway, let's talk about Percy Jackson stuff. Enough of the regional banter where 95% of the audience is like, go talk about the book already. Chapter 33 is called Piper. Obviously, we will be retitling it by the end. We are picking up from an interesting perspective because Piper was passed out. Previously, you might recall, she was a statue because we had the whole King Midas situation, but then they opened up the ceiling, the rain was falling down, and then it was vague exactly what was happening, but Jason was like, let's leave Midas to these statues that have come back to life. You haven't heard this yet because the podcast episode hasn't come out, but I was very upset that he didn't try to recruit anyone for the team. What if someone was very helpful? Jason's like, they'll all beat him up. I don't know, man. Maybe run some auditions.
There were a ton of half-bloods in that. They described so many half-bloods, and I'm like, maybe.
Who's this guy? Heracles? Don't hear about it. So what we get with this opening line is, quote, Piper woke up cold and shivering. So clearly she has been out for some period of time, but we don't know. And I was thinking, okay, she was asleep, woke up. Did she have some dreams? Will they be plot relevant? And apparently she did dream, but it was just about an old man with donkey ears playing tag against her. So very much similar to the Midas situation. We have her now awake, and then Jason covers her in a blanket. I'm sensing a theme here. He loves to cover her with things when she's cold. So we...
Pro tip, if someone's cold, blanket.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Great relationship.
Maybe one day Piper will get that hug that is not, I am cold and I need to be hugged. There's still hope. I believe in you, Piper. So they're in a cave of sorts. And that made me wonder, what was the situation here? Was she human? Was she a statue for longer than these other people are statues? It was confusing. Especially so because Leo is awake and he explains that he was also a statue, but he kind of snapped back into human form much quicker than Piper did. And he explains that they had to dump Piper in the river to get her back into human form, and they could only dry her and warm her so much because the river is very wet and very cold. Jason says that she has hypothermia, which he said a little too calmly. Like, I've never had it before. I don't know actually how serious of a condition it is, but him saying it like she has a runny nose felt like a little... I don't know, I felt like there should have been a bit more gravitas with, hello, you have hypothermia.
Yeah, it's something that if someone told me, I would want them to be concerned about me.
Sure.
And he wasn't.
Yeah.
Which, it's fine, you know?
Because hypothermia is not good.
No.
It's not as bad as pneumonia, though, right? That feels like the next level. Like, that's the Pokemon evolution of hypothermia, right?
But
you give it a cold stone, and then it turns into, yeah.
The issue with hypothermia is you lose parts of your body, usually. Like,
hypothermia?
if it gets so bad.
Oh, is that worse?
I mean, pneumonia will kill you over time.
Oh, God, I know I usually talk to Dr. Moy, but I feel like I need a different doctor for this sort of question. But he says it. I thought that was a little too intense for the way he delivered it. And he explains that they use as much nectar as was safe, and then Coach Hedge did some nature magic. And he calls it sports medicine and warns her that her breath may smell like mushrooms and Gatorade for a bit, and that is a gross combination, but that is also the perfect combination for Coach Hedge, being, you know, the sports coach satyr. Like, yes, those two vibes are mushrooms and Gatorade. And I don't know why, but for me, it was orange Gatorade. He just feels like an orange Gatorade kind of guy.
You know, I want to know who was the first guy to be like, look, we have nature magic, we have this healing magic. This Gatorade stuff will make it better.
Yeah.
Was it Hedge? Was it Hedge who was like, I really like Gatorade?
I think Hedge probably has this job that he gets. I don't know if the wilderness school was his first teaching job, but whatever the first situation he is a coach in, I think that he is doing whatever sports thing, and then someone hands him Gatorade and he takes a sip and his eyes like bulge out. Like when, you know, if you ever see a video of like a kid drinking soda for the first time and they freak out, like I feel like he would be like that. What is this nectar of the gods? It's Gatorade, Gatorade. Ah, yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm. It's his Diet Coke, like to Mr. D.
And it leads you to think what other medicines are improved by any type of sports drink.
Oh.
Or like sport anything, right? There's so much.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Like Pepto-Bismol, but it's cool blue. Or something that makes it taste better. Piper asks how Jason beat King Midas, and Jason relays the tale, but he tries to chalk it up mostly to luck, and Hedge says, he's being modest. You should have seen Jason in action. And Jason reminds Coach Hedge that he didn't even see him in action because he was outside eating grass the whole time. And Hedge continues to embellish the story, saying that he came in afterwards to finish the job. Jason tells him to shut up. Hedge obliges. I love it. I'm all in on Coach Hedge. I've been all in on Coach Hedge for a while, but this new comedic relief, too intense, but like action hero, sidekick, henchman guy, Coach Hedge is a phenomenal vibe.
And Hedge is that teacher, and I was a teacher for a while. So like I met this teacher. When you're a teacher, you see like students, you're like, I can tell they're crushing on this person. Mm-hmm. Hedge is the one that gets involved. And this is his way of getting involved. He's like, have you heard about this Jason guy?
This is a fun read. I would not have thought of that. That's an interesting read.
That's my perspective, which means he's like that terrible teacher who gets involved in everyone's relationships, but it's kind of cute.
I feel like if he's keeping a proper distance, that is okay. I thankfully have never had any sort of teacher meddling in my relationships before. Jason checks Piper's temperature by feeling her forehead. Leo tends to the fire. Piper asks where they are. Jason says that they are in Pikes Peak, Colorado. And I like that Colorado is now getting some love because didn't they stop in Denver for like 3.5 seconds in the Percy Percy Jackson book and then move on. Like they had a train layover in Denver or something. I feel like Denver is very much brushed over. So for Colorado to get like some actual chapters made me feel happy for them. Yeah.
Amazing.
Piper somehow knows, because I guess she's just a geography buff, that Pikes Peak, Colorado is 500 miles from Omaha. I don't know how she knew this, but she's just like, oh, that's 500 miles from Omaha. Like, what? Okay.
Look, her dad had a movie about traveling from Omaha to Pikes Peak.
Sure. Yeah, he was in a Lewis and Clark movie, but he was Clark. Yeah. So Jason says that he harnessed the storm spirits to get there, but it was so stressful and so hard to do so that he doesn't want to do it again. Now, that's very convenient, but also logistically, how did this work? Because they were in a backpack before. So what does this mean? Like, do they all just like kind of open the backpack and then grab the flying backpack? Like, I feel like I needed one more sentence, because just to say you harness the storm spirits, like, I don't know, what do you have, a hot air balloon and then they're up there? Do you have a sail? Like, what are you doing to harness the spirits?
So this series of books has the exact opposite problem that Percy had. He couldn't take to the sky, so only could touch the ground and the water. Whereas in this, they only can be in the sky.
The floor is lava.
And the floor is lava. And literally the ground has tried to eat one of them already.
Sure, yeah.
And so, yeah, it would be really nice to know what that vessel is that gets them from point A to point B. Because currently we know it's spirits and backpack. So I envision they're all just hugging, including the coach, all just like
hugging Jason.
it, and there's a backpack on, and he's wearing it upside down.
Yeah. The other thing I could see, because when he explained his flying powers before, he said like, oh, I'm not flying, I'm controlling the wind. Like, okay, Buzz Lightyear. But I feel like maybe it could have been a thing where he let them free and then was using them to like make a big sort of like wind thing that he's kind of like air bendering through. I've seen 0 episodes of Avatar, so I don't understand how that works, but you know how it works. I would imagine that that could also be it, where it's like he's using his wind/flying abilities to try and like channel them into some sort of force that propels all of them, and then eventually becomes too hard, so then he forces them back into the backpack and zips it up and says, never again.
My biggest question about all of this, sure, how did they get there? That's important. When they landed, what made them think cave is a good idea? Because that's like the antithesis of the rest of they're like, we can't go underground, we can't touch it, but a cave, that's safety.
Yeah. I would assume it was just like a rash decision based on the storm that's going on. Like, it was just like, it's raining, it's hailing, it's windy, where do we go? Oh, cool, cave. Like, that would be my thought, but I'm not sure. Now, Piper is thinking along the same lines of you. Piper asks, why are we here? And Leo says, I asked Jason the same thing. So, ooh, testy from Leo. Jason says that he followed the trail until it faded completely, and then he stopped here because it felt right. And I was thinking, okay, it felt right. Are we finally going to meet a friend? We've had a lot of chapters of meeting adversaries. Will there be a friend? Ha ha ha. We'll see what happens. Hedge says that it obviously feels right because Aeolus loves to post up here on the peak of the mountain that is right above them. And that's when I realized, oh, right, the trail that they're following is most likely from Aeolus because it's a trail in the wind. So that would make sense that he would lead them directly to this spot. Jason adds that something was tugging at him, and Piper wonders if it was the hunters, since they were headed westward and they were referenced by Midas earlier. Jason isn't sure, and he doubts that anyone could survive being on top of the mountain right now, given how intense the storm is, but he thinks whatever it is, we're just gonna have to wait out the storm. I know we're tight on the deadline, but it's rough out there, so let's be safe in the cave. He says that they have to keep Piper warm, and he asks if it's okay if he hugs her by the fire for warmth. I like that he's asking consent. Good job, Jason. Piper tries very hard to be nonchalant about it, which, of course, doesn't go well because she says, I suppose, which is smooth, Piper. I suppose.
I would love to describe what she was looking like, because you know she's trying to cover it up, and she's like, I suppose.
She looks exactly like Mike Schubert at an 8th grade post-graduation party when we were at a friend's house on a trampoline playing Spin the Bottle. And just by the weight distribution of how people were sitting on the trampoline, when the girl I had a huge crush on was spinning the bottle, it spun on me 3 different times. And I remember trying to act very much like, oh no, like, I don't know.
Me again?
There was distinctly a time she was like, again, and I was like, I don't know what's happening. It was great. It was fantastic. Highly recommend.
Mike with a magnet right there.
Yeah, a plastic magnet. Oh, yeah. I have like a tiny thing of fishing wire. Like, yeah. No, what if she listens? So Leo decides to tell all of the team about his Hephaestus dream. He hasn't relayed that information yet. Piper is trying to focus on the good, the Jason cuddling her aspect, the her feeling warmer aspect, but she can't help but think about the bad. Why would the gods cut off access to Olympus if they need the demigods' help? So she's really having a bit of a toss-up here. Hedge scoffs that the gods hate needing mortal help, and they prefer to have the status be flipped. He says that things would have to be much worse before Zeus would admit he made a mistake. And Piper says that that was almost something smart to say, but then she doesn't elaborate. I thought she was going to be like, oh, that was almost smart, Hedge, and that gave me an idea, blah, 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 blah. But she just doesn't. She says it's almost smart, and then Hedge protests and says that they must not know about the Great War, but then he attributes it to the gods not wanting to talk about that time since they had to have help from the humans. So maybe that's why they don't know about it. And then it's just kind of like brushed on. So I don't know what Piper was getting at. Like, was she just trying to dunk on Coach Hedge? I felt like there was a next step that wasn't realized.
Yeah, I feel like Coach Hedge has been this like, oh, he's just the dumb coach who does the hitting things with a club. And Piper was almost at the point of like, Hedge, you're not so bad. And then decides, never mind, partway through, and says an almost right there.
It was very strange.
It's the sass. The sass, like there wasn't enough sass in this book. And this specific section of paragraphs maybe has some of the most sass. I don't know if y'all read it, but there's a part where right before Leo's getting into the story, he specifically says, now that y'all all cuddled up for story time, ellipse. Which is the best ellipse ever.
Yeah, the three of them are getting sassier. I noted in the previous episode that like those two narrator Jason chapters, he was much sassier as the narrator, which wasn't his vibe. So I kind of like that they're all just getting tired and they're more on edge and they are just letting some of the quips fly now that they are not as well rested and they're more stressed out. Jason adds that when he spoke with Hera, she said that Zeus was being abnormally paranoid, and she heard a voice in her head. And Jason's wondering if the gods are being influenced like Medea tried to influence them. Piper had a similar worry. A hidden force, possibly the dirt woman or an underling of hers, is pulling strings and knows where they are and may have even messed with Festus, which is kind of like my running theory that it feels like Enchiladas, who I'm just calling him Enchiladas now, it feels like Enchiladas messed with Festus at the opportune moments. So for Piper to suggest it makes me think there's probably some validity to it. I think she had thought this earlier. Leo adds that Hephaestus gave a similar vibe off in the dream, that Zeus was acting weird. And he also thinks that Hephaestus was holding something back in the dream, like he wasn't saying everything. And overall, he got the impression that Hephaestus thinks that Hera trying to assemble the strongest demigods is a risky move. Jason says that the holding back of information reminds him of Chiron not discussing the sacred oath. And he asks Coach Hedge if he knows anything about a sacred oath. And Hedge says, no, they don't tell stuff like that to satyrs, even old ones like me. And he reveals that he's 106 years old. And the kids are like, whoa, that's way too old. And he goes, don't worry, it's in satyr years. I'm 53 in human years, so I'm not old. And for a bunch of teenagers, 53, you're dead. You're a fossil. Game over, dude.
As someone about to turn 30, I feel like 30 is old.
Nah.
And so 50-something has to be dead for sure.
Yeah.
He also does this thing where he like is going to say something about being old, but doesn't. He's like, some old, and then Piper fills in with, an old guy. And that's weird. Like, what was he going to say? I need to know because this is censorship.
Yeah, I don't think he was going to say a curse word. The only thing I could think of is like, they don't say it to old farts like me, but like fart isn't a bad enough word to bleep out of the book.
It's very intriguing. I feel like there's a lot of self-doubt and Hedge, and we need to support him.
I want to. I mean, we'll have to see. I want to see Hedge like get into the action because you're right. At this point, it feels like he's talking a big game but doesn't feel it inside. I want Hedge to have like a aha moment. I did it. I mean, he did save their butts in Las Vegas. So like, you're doing good stuff, Hedge. Take notice. So he says that he's made some enemies in the Council of Cloven Elders, which is a great sign. Green, green, green flag there. And he says that the council deemed him too violent, and Piper pretends to be shocked, which is fantastic. He was mad that they shipped him up to Canada during the last war, and then he was far away from Olympus at the wilderness school during this current Olympus is closed situation. He chides the council for always discussing nature, and Piper asks, isn't that your whole thing as a satyr? Nature? And he says, nature to me, and gives this explanation where he's basically of like the laws of nature. He's like food chain nature guy, which is fantastic. But then immediately after being pro-food chain, he asks Leo, who's been preparing to make burgers this whole time, if he has any vegetarian options since he, quote, doesn't do flesh, which is the worst way to say that. Absolutely the worst way to say that. Like, oh, hi, do you have any dietary restrictions? Yeah, I don't do flesh. Okay.
Eating flesh is too far, but he loves people killing each other.
Yeah,
so he's a vegetarian for weird reasons.
I found it to be very funny, and I'm sure it was an intentional like 1-2 punch from Rick here. Now, Leo says that he has tofu patties. Now, I am even a pro-tofu person because I think it's too much of a thing where people are like, tofu, bleh. Like it's not that gross. But I don't know that I've ever had a tofu burger. From the cooking consistencies I know from tofu, I don't know that this would be great. I feel like the supreme or the superior vegetarian burger option would be like a black bean burger. Like those always hit really hard. And I used to order those at the cafeteria at Rice just like when I just was feeling it, like not if I was doing a thing where I would go like vegetarian for a little bit or something.
I feel like tofu is like the perfect vessel for getting flavor to your face.
Correct.
And
it just tastes like whatever you season it. It's like when you use like Impossible meat or something.
And the issue with that is a burger, the flavor of a burger comes from the burger.
Yeah, like the fat is a big deal.
Yeah, and so it is the worst method of getting flavor to your face because now it's just whatever condiment they put on.
Right.
So they're eating tofu flavored with like mustard or mayonnaise on it, which doesn't sound great to me.
No, that doesn't sound
As a tofu enjoyer, it's the wrong texture for it's like a.
We're in California. Has anyone had a tofu burger before? Okay, is it good? Dried tofu.
Fried.
Oh,
okay.
Fried tofu. That
so
makes
then
more
whatever
sense.
Oil is now giving it the flavor, which is the fatty flavor that
does
you're
Leo
for.
have a deep fryer? All right, this is the show now, guys. This is the show. Yeah, okay. Fried tofu makes more sense because I definitely had that in like Asian dishes where you would more typically have. Yeah, okay.
I'm on board now.
Now, yeah, but I was imagining just like putting it on like a griddle and then it like crumbling apart and then you try to flip it and like it would stick to it and it would crumble. It would be bad. Okay, fried tofu makes more sense. Thank you, California. Narrator Piper says, quote, the smell of frying burgers filled the air. Piper usually hated the smell of cooking meat, but her stomach rumbled like it wanted to mutiny. I'm losing it, she thought. Think broccoli, carrots, lentils. Does any vegetarian think like this? Is that what you, like, do you, no? I'm seeing lots of shaking heads. I can't imagine being like, cause I'm sure it would be tempting if you used to eat meat, and then it's like, oh no, let me just think vegetable. Like, what?
No, but here's the thing, right? She had a professional chef at home who is making the best meals ever.
Right.
There is no way she's tempted by Leo's cooking in the middle of a cave.
On the flip side, Leo's doing his best. Like he made those tofu tacos. He's trying to make a tofu burger. I'm sure that his vegetarian options are way worse than whatever the chef was doing. Like if it's a lot easier to go vegetarian or vegan, A, if someone's making the food for you, or B, if it's unlimited. Like I did a couple of times at Rice where I went vegetarian for like a month, but when it's in a cafeteria with all you can eat food, like, yeah, it's really easy. Whereas if I try to go vegetarian on my own, it's like, I need to buy a lot of vegetables. I'm a hungry boy. This is gonna be a lot of protein from like edamame beans.
That is fair. However, PB&Js are her go-to
Yeah,
meal.
that's true. Because she's not fancy. So Piper, as the narrator, also reveals that her conscience is quaking too around the whole enchiladas thing. She's pretty sure that she can never betray her friends, but there's a small part of her that wonders, what would happen if I did? She tries to imagine what her dad would say if he was presented with the facts. And she jokingly laments that this sort of hypothetical question never came up when they play 3 questions.
Oh, it's almost like that's bad parenting.
It's almost like you shouldn't do that. She thinks that if this hypothetical ever did come up, he would probably just tell some sort of Grandpa Tom story and then get to the part where there's the moral and then laugh it off. So Piper just absolutely throwing zingers at her dad as the narrator. She wishes that she remembered her grandpa better, and she wonders what life would have been like growing up in his house in Oklahoma. She knows that her dad would not be a fan since he spent his whole life distancing himself from that place geographically, but then also metaphorically and such by always taking on roles that were not native roles in his movies. And he often told Piper that she was so lucky to have the California glitzy childhood that she had. She was conditioned to be uncomfortable about her heritage because her dad would critique old photos of him when he was wearing clothes or having hair that more embraced the culture. And she recognizes that for him, being Cherokee was something funny and mildly embarrassing, like an old photo of yourself when you're wearing clothes and you have your hair in a style that you wouldn't wear today. And Piper thinks that this disdain for his own identity led to her problems. Her dad was always unhappy because he kept looking for something that wasn't there, and Piper stole things because she was always looking for her dad to give her something that he didn't have. And I'm really glad that they got into this. I think it's a really interesting perspective. I think at some point I'm going to do an episode of TNO with Delia Gallegos, who's been on the show before, and she's Cherokee, and I think just trying to talk about all the sorts of Piper background stuff, because I find it interesting, and I'm curious to know, like, what's accurate, what's not, like, all that kind of stuff. I'm curious to see if this will continue to be brought up in future books or if it's just going to be like in the main intro Piper book. I'm fascinated to see how it develops.
Yeah, it's really interesting. My grandmother was like a quarter Cherokee, but she grew up on reservation. She was a medical student on reservation. And hearing her stories reminds me a lot of this because her dad, who was the Cherokee side, like really didn't like his culture. And so he had like very similar, but it was never this, right? It was never like laughing at the culture. It was just like, it's not for me. It was always how she always told the stories.
Okay.
But I have no idea.
Okay.
It would be interesting to see if any other, like, that generational era has that same feeling towards anything.
I'm interested. And anyone, listeners or whatever, send me an email. I'd love to know. I always find it interesting when people give me perspectives on stuff I don't know. Piper then thinks of a story her dad told her that may answer some questions. In second grade, Piper came home in tears and asked why her dad named her Piper. Apparently, bullies were making fun of her. They were making fun of her name being Piper because Piper Cherokee is a type of airplane. Couple of questions. One, how the hell would 7-year-olds know this? 7 years old, bullies are going to be like, oh, I'm well-versed in airplane models. What are you talking about? You're 7.
Okay, but hear me out. This, I think, is the longest joke Rick has ever set up, because he clearly sets it up as her name at the beginning and waits 33 chapters to be like, get the name now?
So that's number 2 for me is, if this is how Rick came up with the name, that doesn't feel great.
No.
That doesn't feel wonderful. I'm pretty sure that the Piper Cherokee stuff is one of the things he's like gotten flack for and either adjusted or apologized or something. If this is actually how the name came up, like, that's not great, dude. I don't know. I don't know. Again, I'd have to ask Delia to know if that's not okay, but like, that doesn't feel instinctually ideal. But then number 3, wouldn't 7-year-olds think being named after an airplane is the coolest thing ever? If you're 7, that rules. People used to make fun of me, like in kindergarten. They'd be like, oh, Michael motorcycle. And I'd be like, why'd you say that? I'd be like, oh, because it rhymes. I'd be like, but motorcycles are cool. And then that ended that conversation.
To be fair, I don't think, as much as Rick tries to make things kind of last generationally, which he misses on from time to time, there are references that don't hit. The way that he describes bullying in school is exactly how bullying works. It's like, your name sounds like another thing?
Yeah, that's true. And then
funny?
It does. Yeah, that is a key thing with bullying is you don't actually have to say anything funny.
No.
You just need like a collective group to start laughing.
Yeah.
Like you can do a D's nuts joke that doesn't end with the other person saying D's, and as long as like 8 people laugh, they'd all be like, got him, So Tristan laughs as if the thought never occurred to him. And that's another bad sign of parenting. When you come up with a name for a kid, you got to think of everything. You got to think of every single possibility of insults. That was certainly something that Kelly and I went into when we named our daughter undisclosed name. But you gotta factor in. Are they going to make fun of this? Does it rhyme with anything? Are the initials weird? Like, to not think of that once? Come on, man. That should have come up.
The 7-year-olds know it.
Yeah. Me? Never thought of it. 7-year-olds? Got it. Day 1. Boom. Roasted. Apparently, Grandpa Tom picked her name, though. The first time he heard her cry, he thought her voice was more powerful than any reed flute piper. And reed flute piper, would it not be reed pipe fluter?
No,
Reed flute piper?
Because it's
a reed flute, not a reed pipe?
It's a reed flute, if you pipe it, then you are the one playing it.
Okay. I've never played the flute, so I don't know anything about this.
It's fine.
Cool.
I think it's flautists nowadays.
Oh, yes. Of course, yes. But the
joke doesn't work that way.
No. But the other thing with them waiting for the crying to determine the name, that just means they went into the delivery room just like having nothing, or at least they didn't have something determined. But like it could have happened in between the birth and like when you have to do it, because at least when we did it, like before you leave the hospital, you got to like fill out the paperwork and commit to the name. I have never made sure more times that I spelled my own last name correctly than when I was filling out that form. I was like, there's the C in it, right? The C is in there, yeah? Okay.
So, fun fact, my line of family, that got wrong at one point.
Oh, with the McKain, because you have the
that
K?
McKain is spelled with a C, which is the way that most people spell it. I'm spelled with a K because we're different.
Yeah. Hey, you get to distance yourself from Meghan McKain, so that's great.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. But legitimately, that was a thing that came up, and I think my dad was also named like a week after being born. So
I have friends who did, like one of my buddies, Josh, like his birth certificate says baby Pacifico because they just didn't have it in set yet. But I also think I'm pretty sure in the form there was a grace period for something. I think there's something where it's like, if you mess up, you can tell us, like kind of thing. So, or I guess if you changed your mind, like, oh, she cried and it sounded like Piper. So Grandpa Tom thought that Piper could handle even the toughest Cherokee song with this powerful voice. Then he notes that the most challenging song is the snake song. So Piper asked her dad, what was the snake song? So Tristan tells this story. Once, a Cherokee woman saw a snake playing too close to children, so she killed it with a rock, not knowing that it was king of the rattlesnakes. Oh, I hate when that happens. And it's always snakes. It's always snakes. But the snakes then prep for war against the humans, like it's Planet of the Snakes. But the woman's husband then tries to broker a peace deal by telling the snakes, I'll do anything to settle the score. Hey, guy, that's not how negotiation works. Whoa. I'll do literally anything. So what do they offer? Of course they say, okay, let us kill your wife. How do you not think that's what they're going to suggest? You idiot. Come on.
Look, negotiations usually start lower and you build them up until you agree. This guy heard what happened with the emus in Australia and was like, we are not having
the emus in Australia?
The Great Emu War?
Lay it on me. I'm not familiar.
So, Australia.
This is the show now.
This is the show now. Welcome to Nerdy Cognition. Bam. So, emus all over the place in Australia, right?
Sure.
A big problem, a big bird. They get in the way, a pretty major problem. And Australia needs to lessen the population. So they start attacking the emus with guns, might I add.
Okay.
They send their army to attack the emus. They lose the war. This is legitimately like one of the major wars that Australia loses. They just give up because they're running out of bullets. They're like spending way too much money, and emus just keep appearing and keep trampling through things, and it becomes a real problem. So they're like, let's stop spending money on this, and we technically lose the war against the emus. And this guy clearly has heard the story of animals just completely obliterating full
armies. So he's just
going
to give them carte blanche and do anything.
Absolutely.
So yeah, his big negotiation tactic is, I will do anything. And then they say, okay, put your wife in a well so we can kill her. Doofus. He was crushed, but then he goes, okay, because he's never heard of negotiating before. The snakes were shocked that he went through with it. They're like, we really didn't think you were going to go for that, but okay. But then they were so impressed with his dedication, that they taught him the snake song for all Cherokee to use. And from that day forward, any Cherokee who sang that song would make it clear to a snake that they were a friend, and the snake would then back off. And now I'm just realizing that this woman was actually Jesus Christ, who died for our sins so that no more snakes. She was the sacrificial lamb.
The sins are snake deaths.
Yeah.
And after this point, all Cherokee never got bitten by a single snake.
Yeah, look, I don't know enough about Cherokee history and heritage and culture. I wish I did. I wish my history books in America taught me about America. But I do feel like if this is a thing that people actually utilize, it's going to be a recipe for disaster. Where it's like, well, he sang the song. I don't know what happened. Like, it was a snake. They don't understand you. Piper thought it was awful that he let his wife die. Yeah. Not ideal. But Tristan says that it was a hard sacrifice, but one life brought lasting peace. And he ends this by saying that Grandpa Tom thought Cherokee music could solve any problem, and Piper would be the family's best musician, and thus she should be named Piper. Now, current present tense Piper wonders if Grandpa Tom had some sort of oracle-based powers by possibly predicting that she would have to make some sort of hard sacrifice like she's in the position of right now. Piper decides that because her friends have been so great to her this entire quest, and because she promised to help them, she owes them the truth, which I'm very excited about. I'm a big fan of honesty. So, yeah!
Yeah! Honesty!
Yeah! St. Nick's in the crowd. So she sits up and tells them that they have to talk. She explains that she had a vision of a giant saying that her father has been taken hostage and he will be killed if she doesn't do as he says. And Jason asks, oh, is that enchiladas guy? And she says, con carne. No, she doesn't say anything. Instead, Coach Hedge says, I don't like him. And Jason shushes him so that Piper can continue the story. Piper says that she tried to contact her dad, but only got a hold of his assistant. And Jason recalls, oh, right, Medea said something about controlling her. And Piper explains that to get her dad back, she's supposed to just tank the quest. But she didn't realize that the people on the quest would be Leo and Jason. So now she feels differently. So I love that Piper is saying, oh, I'd kill people, but not you two. I like you. I would murder some other people at Camp Half-Blood, but not my friends.
Look, here's the thing, though, right? To be fair, her dad just said that a guy choosing to kill his wife, that was chill. That was the correct call. That's the parenting she has.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, she's in philosophy class, and they're like, all right, trolley problem. And she's like, just run over the person. Just do it. Just get him. Run him over. Piper goes on that Enchiladas told her that Jason and Leo needed to die. And he said that he wants her to bring them to a mountain. And about this, she says, quote, I don't know exactly which one, but it's in the Bay Area. I could see the Golden Gate Bridge from the summit. New information that she did not give us previously. So I went into I was reading this on the flight on the way over, and I could hear the noise in my ears as I locked in to use my 7 months of living in the East Bay to see if I can figure out what mountain it is. But previously I had guessed Sutro Tower, just because it's big, scary, and evil looking. You've all seen it. It's terrifying. One day, if there was a news report that was like laser beam fired out of Sutro Tower, I'd be like, yeah, You can see the Golden Gate Bridge from Twin Peaks, so that's still in play. So I was thinking, okay, maybe it could still be Twin Peaks, but now that she's calling it a mountain, I wouldn't call Twin Peaks a mountain. It's more of like a big hill with two peaks, as the name would suggest. Doesn't feel mountainous enough to be a mountain. But I continued in my notes, okay, the other option, it could be Mount Tam again, but that would be really boring, so I would hope not. Land's End isn't really a mountain, but you can see the Golden Gate from there, so I don't think it would be Land's End. Corona Heights, I don't think you can see the Golden Gate Bridge from Corona Heights, so I don't think it's there. I hope it's not something else in Marin, because again, too close to Mount Tam, I want to spice it up. But she continues. She says that she has to be there by noon on the solstice, which is tomorrow, for this exchange. And Piper awaits outrage from Jason and Leo, but instead, she is greeted with comfort by Jason, who puts an arm around her and says, God, Piper, I'm so sorry. And Leo feels similarly, wishing that she would have told them earlier rather than just sit with it for a week. And Piper would prefer that they just be angry at her because it's easier to process. But Jason brushes it off because she's saved both of them along this quest, so he would trust his life in her hands. And Leo agrees, and he also asks for a hug. I couldn't tell if he was kidding or not. I think he did want a hug.
and they don't respond to this, by the way.
Not at all.
He ends with like, oh, and can I get a hug too? And then they
anyway, what mountain do you think it is, Jason? Yeah. So Piper's upset, saying that they don't realize that she's probably killed her dad by telling them this, but then Coach Hedge interjects to say, that he doubts it. He says that Enchiladas hasn't gotten what he wants yet, so he needs Tristan as leverage. He will wait until the deadline passes to see if she shows up. He believes that Hera has to be kept elsewhere if the whole point of this exchange is to derail the quest. Hedge's thought is that Piper will have to choose between rescuing her dad and rescuing Hera, since Hera has the same deadline. And he thinks that Enchiladas will, quote, take care of her dad if she goes after Hera. And I'm pretty sure he means take care as in kill, but English is a fun language where he could mean, oh yeah, he'll take care of him, or he'll take care of him. I don't envy anyone trying to learn English, the language, because that's ridiculous that you could mean comfort or murder with the same phrase.
It's okay.
It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. And here's the thing. That's a lovely image. Just think about Enchiladas, preparing Enchiladas for a father.
Oh my gosh, he adopts Tristan as his son. So cute. What would you like for breakfast, little one? Yeah.
I love it. I love
Turkey leg again? Yeah. Hedge continues, saying Enchiladas is not gonna let you leave if you do cooperate, so I don't think it's worth it. He's saying she's definitely one of the 7 if they're going out of their way to try and derail and maybe even kill her, so he doesn't have high hopes that helping him would be something that she should do anyway, which I think is the right line of thinking. Piper has a hard time believing that, quote, a stupid child of Aphrodite would be one of the 7. She doesn't think that she would be worthy of trying to eliminate. But Piper says, there's no choice then. We gotta save Hera, and thus my dad's just gonna have to die.
At this specific point, I made a note where I really wished something in her head would like go back to the story about the, snake and be like, if my dad thinks that a sacrifice of a person saving the world, then like he would be fine with him being the sacrifice of a person, right?
I mean, in certain, look, we've brought up the trolley problem already, but in certain things, like if anyone's ever, what's the PlayStation game where you get the lightning powers? Come on.
Oh yeah, because there's one PlayStation game with lightning
You're like
powers.
this guy named Cole? No, not God of War. You're a dude? Infamous.
Oh,
yeah. So it's like a choice
second
between good and
son
evil
and all
one, and then
that.
you either have the good path and the bad path, and there's a legit like trolley problem in the game where it's like save your girlfriend or save a bunch of kids, and if you pick your girlfriend, it's the evil path, and then if you save her, she immediately breaks up with you. She's like, why didn't you save the kids? And then just breaks up with you. It's like, yeah, dude. So maybe Tristan would have that same kind of thought, but this is classic me because as I've joked on the podcast, Kelly says that I have time optimism where I think like, oh yeah, I can do that in time, and I definitely can't do it in time, but my thought here is she was like, oh man, we're gonna have to choose. I was like, you still got a day and a half. Like, come on, you'll be fine. Like, go save Hera and then save your dad, right? Come on, you'll be okay. Was definitely my instinct. But I agree that going after Hera is the right call because it feels like they will maybe not kill Tristan, but I don't know. But Leo says, look, I want to save him. Let's try to save your dad. Piper says there's no time and it's a trap. Leo says, we're not just going to let him die. We got to figure something out. And Hedge says that if Aeolus can tell them where the mountain is, that would be a huge piece of information. He says he hopes it's not Mount Tam, and Piper says no, because it was inland. And though she said inland, I went, ooh, inland. And then back into play is Mount Diablo, because legit mountain, cool name, and if you squint hard enough from the peak, you can see the Golden Gate Bridge. It is not big, it's not prominent, but you can be like, so it's in play, and I think I mentioned it like when we were trying to figure out what mountain Mount Tam was. I'm pretty sure in that episode of the News Olympian, I was like, well, clearly it's Mount Diablo, the one with the scary name. So my 2 choices now here are either Twin Peaks, mountain with scary Sutar Tower on top, or Mount Diablo, mountain with scary name. Those are the 2 thoughts. It's just, how far inland are we talking here, Piper?
And also, how are we defining mountains? Because I know there's like a technical description, but people, as a East Texas kid, we call hills mountains all the time.
And what's funny is there's not even hills in Texas.
No.
You're like, oh, this road slightly slopes upward. It's a hill. You want to talk about hills? Look where we are. Come on. So Jason looks like he's about to have a breakthrough and asks Hedge what happened to Mount Othrys, which they explain to Hedge like, no, that was Mount Tam, blah, blah, blah. Hedge says that Cronus built a new palace there last summer, but after he was defeated in the Battle of Manhattan, the whole place crumbled on its own. And then Jason replies, no. And they all look at him, and Leo asks, what do you mean, no? And Jason just instinctually knows that's not what happened. It's his classic like Latin stuff just emerging, and that's all he can really say about it. But then he hears something, and then Piper hears something. He hears howling, and I wrote wolves with a question mark. And not to give away the next chapter, but the first sentence in the next chapter is wolves, period. So that answered that question quite quickly. But I'm very intrigued to see what's going on with the mountain, what's going on with the wolves. But that is the end of chapter 33, which we have to retitle. Do you have a chapter 33 retitling?
I have two.
Oh, okay.
Number one is like the traditional I blank. So I talked of plains and mountains because that's what this whole chapter is about.
Sure.
The other is a howling breakthrough, which is a little bit of a double entendre.
Okay.
Because the howling breaks through their like about to be at a thing, but also there is a breakthrough, right? Like we find out so much. So those are mine.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't come up with a title pre-hand because I was so excited with the wolves part that I started reading the next chapter immediately, and I'm only realizing now that I don't have one, so I have to come up with one in the spot. We've got the burgers, we've got Hedge, we've got the thought of wolves, we have things about mountains. They're in a cave. Gosh, I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing. In your notes, you have wolves question mark. Is that the name of the chapter?
I like it. Yeah. Wolves question mark. I do like. I think that's a good one. Yeah. Wolves question mark. That's very good. It's like the bees question mark in Cards Against Humanity. Yeah. That's fun. Wolves? Yeah. Cool. Great. Love that. Cool. So that's the end of chapter 33. That is the end of this portion of the episode, if you're listening, because we'll go to the Lost Euro. So let's all say goodbye to the podcast people. Goodbye, podcast people. Hello and welcome to the Lost Euro, kind of Shubio edition, kind of Nashville/Atlanta edition, because I'm recording this one before I leave for my flights for the Nashville and Atlanta little mini weekend tour that I'm doing, but I will be posting this in Nashville or Atlanta, depending on how productive I am on the flights. So let's talk about updates with the podcast. First, in reference to those shows that I'm doing, I was able to bring my camera and my tripod, so I should be filming at least one of those shows, and I'll do the thing that I did with the Seattle and the Vancouver shows, where I put the video up early for patrons. So not only will you be able to hear my thoughts on those chapters, as well as our guest, Michael Hollis, but you'll also be able to see the show and see what it looked like and all kind of fun stuff like that. So that will be available to all levels of TNO patrons if you just go to thenewsolympian.com/Patreon. And speaking of live shows, we've got other ones coming up in the near future, and I would love to see you at those shows. Ahead, we've got September 23rd, New York City, September 26th, Vienna, Virginia, which is very close to DC, October 5th, Toronto, Ontario, October 13th, Boston. The late show is sold out. The early show is up. You can get tickets to that right now, and that one will probably sell out as well, so get to it if you want to get to it. October 24th in New Orleans, October 30th in Dallas, and November 7th in Philadelphia. So that's what we've got on the horizon. You can get tickets to all those shows at thenewsolympian.com/live, and if you follow us on social media, I will post what we're going to be covering at those shows, usually about a week before the show. That's when I understand what we will be covering, but I do know that the New York show is going to be the first two chapters of The Son of Neptune. I scheduled it all out and looked at the calendar, and that's going to be the plan, and I think that'll be a really fun way to kick off that book, because it was fun kicking off The Lost Hero at a live show. So I want to do that for New York as well, and I'm trying to get that show live streamed to where we could do basically exactly what we did at the beginning of The Lost Hero. We had a streamed show. It kicked off the book. I'm going to try to do that for New York as well. So stay tuned. Follow us on social media. Listen to these mid-roll breaks and all of updates there. As far as other stuff on the Patreon, I posted a director's commentary. We've got bonus episodes coming, live stream Q&As coming, lots of cool, fun things over at the Patreon. And I want to give a shout out to the folks who have joined the Patreon most recently. At the time of recording this, I don't have any new patrons. We will see if I have new patrons by the time I'm getting ready to post this. So let's see if future Mike has anything for us. Hello, it's Mike from the future. We've actually come full circle. I'm back in the Shubio because I had too much going on in terms of show prep to finish uploading the episode while I was on tour. So finishing up the final touches here in New York City, but I am here to say that we do have a new patron. So shout out to our newest demigod tier patron, Jonathan Coyom Valdivia.
Also, I'm here. I have here in my notes that at one point in the episode, I said pro tofu, but I didn't make a joke saying profu. I sincerely apologize, and I will try to be better going forward. But anyway, back to the other recording of Mike for the mid-roll break. Thank you, future Mike, or oh man, I am so sorry that nobody else joined in between recording this and that. Anyway, shout out to everyone who is on the Patreon, new or old or otherwise. I really do appreciate that's very exciting. I really do appreciate that's very kind of you to do so. And may Hermes bless you that all of your text messages go and are read and people reply to you and you're not left on read receipts. Now, if you're all caught up on the News Olympian and you're looking for some new content to consume, you are in luck because I make a whole bunch of content and most of it is podcasts. And I think you'll like them if you like this podcast. One of the podcasts that I make, it's a little bit different, but still very fun, is Meddling Adults. It is a podcast game show for charity where I host and guests compete to solve children's mysteries from Scooby-Doo, Encyclopedia Brown, and more. For charity, whoever ends up getting the most right or scoring the most bonus points by being big goofballs, whoever earns the most points earns money for a charity of their choosing. We've done 4 full seasons. Season 5 is in production. And we've raised a bunch of money for a bunch of really cool organizations, and you can meet some cool people and learn about cool charities and also play along at home. You can see if you beat us, and by us I mean the competitors. I don't compete because I would be so bad at it. You know how good/bad I am at guessing things, but you can listen to Meddling Adults wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Meddling Adults, or you can go to our website, meddlingadults.com. Now, unless you're listening on Patreon, where you get access to ad-free episodes, you're going to hear words from a few sponsors to make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of those ads will be read by me, and others of them won't be. The ones that aren't read by me are inserted locally. So if you live in St. Kitts and Nevis, which is a country I did not know existed, but shout out to the random country website that I used. If you live there, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in English. That is the official language of this Caribbean nation. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back into this episode of The Newest Olympian.
Hope you all had a great intermission. I missed you all so dearly. Let's talk about this book. So we're here for chapter 34, which is also called Piper, weirdly enough. So it begins, as you know, with wolves, period. Piper literally opens with saying, wolves, they sound close. So Jason wields Fliptide in sword mode, and it made me realize that Fliptide is half sword, half javelin, all coin. I gotta make Fliptide merch. Everyone else rises, but Piper is feeling woozy, so Jason tells her, why don't you just take a little bit of a breather here? And she's angry that she has to be protected. She wants to be a part of the fight, but then she sees a glowing pair of red eyes in the darkness, and she thinks, being protected doesn't sound so bad, actually. This is okay. So more wolves enter the fray, and they have a leader amongst them. He has bloody mouth like he just killed someone fresh. So Jason then steps up and says something in Latin. So of course my eyes perked up. Then the alpha wolf curls his lip, and then a lieutenant wolf tries to advance. The alpha snaps at him, and then the wolves retreat. And Leo says, man, I gotta study Latin, and asks Jason what he said. Hedge says that whatever it wasn't enough because he can see the wolves returning, but without the alpha. They don't attack, but there's more than a dozen of them in a semicircle blocking the exit.
This book, with the whole third-person imperfect, it is beautifully done in that we never get an answer to what he said. And it doesn't have to, because he clearly said something important. Well, we'll never know.
No. Would know.
Why would we?
It does give Rick an out to just have to be like, we'll just keep moving.
He said something. They ran away.
I don't know. Maybe you'll learn later. Maybe you won't. He said something in Latin. It also does seem to come up like some of the times when another language is said, like this happened with the French and with the Latin. It's like, what did he say? I don't know, man. Gotta worry about something. But there is some actual Latin coming up. So get ready, everybody. Hedge says to the team, don't worry, I have a plan. I'll kill them all, and then you leave. Which, all right, Coach Hedge.
Also not a plan.
No, not at all. Whatever he's the coach of, I would love to see him as a basketball coach. He's like, all right, I got an idea. Jimmy, just make all your shots. Oh, thanks, coach. Yeah, great, cool.
Make points, score.
Yeah, all right, team, here's what we're going to do. We're going to score more than the other team. Ready, break. Piper says, Coach, they'll rip you apart. And he says, nah, I'm good. It's so great. Oh, I love him. Piper then sees the silhouette of a man walking through the pack. Jason tells them to stick together because they should respect a pack. And he tells Hedge not to do anything zany. Piper's worried because she feels like the weak link in the pack, so she fears that she will be targeted by these wolves. And then we get this quote from the book. The wolves parted, and the man stepped into the firelight. His hair was greasy and ragged, the color of fireplace soot, and topped with a crown of what looked like finger bones. I don't like all of the bone hair accessories that the enemies seem to have. And Colossus had bones in his hair. This guy has bones in his hair. I don't love this.
Also, who's Piper to know what finger bones look like?
Look, she knows that Omaha and this city in Colorado are 500 miles apart. So she just knows everything. She's a walking encyclopedia.
Oh, I forgot. Her dad was on an episode of Bones once.
Right, exactly, yeah. Of course, yeah. So it continues. His robes were tattered fur, wolf, rabbit, raccoon, deer, and several others. Raccoon being in the mix is like, oh yes, the mighty kill of a raccoon. And several others Piper couldn't identify. The furs didn't look cured, and from the smell, they weren't very fresh. His frame was lithe? I'm not fancy. I learn something new every day. His frame was lithe and muscular.
Lithe and becoming, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I don't know. That's one of those words that, like, if you tried to use it, you're like, okay, Dictionary Jones, lithe? Ugh. Yeah. I had that. I was reading a book where they were like took excerpts from other authors, and it was a sports book, and the guy was trying to say that traditionally if you play for a lot of teams, they'll call you like a journeyman, like, oh, if you played for a bunch of different ones, yeah, journeyman type career, and he called it an itinerant career, and I was like, what, like itinerary? And I had to like Google it, and it was like, oh yeah, someone who went from place to place. And I was like, okay, guest author, trying to be like, well, I've only got 5 sentences to look cool in this book, so I'm gonna bust out itinerant. Anyway, his frame was lithe and muscular, like a distance runner's. But the most horrible thing was his face. His thin, pale skin was pulled tight over his skull, his teeth were sharpened like fangs, his eyes glowed bright red like his wolves, and they fixed on Jason with absolute hatred. Pretty cool vibe. Pretty scary vibe. Good villainous vibe.
Great vibes.
And then he says some Latin. He says, Ecce fili Romani, which I know means, behold, Roman sons, because I took Latin in high school, fun fact. And woo! They don't translate it. Hedge just yells, speak English, Wolfman. And then the Wolfman tells Jason to get him in line. Otherwise, Hedge will be his first snack. Piper notes that he called Hedge fawn, and he remembers, oh, right, that's the Roman word for satyr, so just making it very, very clear, in case the Latin wasn't clear enough, that this is a Roman adversary of sorts. She doesn't think that knowing this would be as helpful as knowing who this guy is from mythology. She's trying to rack her brain of, like, who is Wolfman? What is a relevant wolf person?
I just love that he listened to Hedge. Like, Hedge was like, speak English, and he was like, I guess.
Okay, fine.
Okay, sure. Fine.
All right.
Sure.
Yeah. The Wolfman says, so it's true about the three of them being together. He's shocked that they haven't killed each other, so it feels like maybe there's a prophecy or some sort of rumors about them. So Jason asks, who talked to you about us? But he does so by a proper usage of by whom. Can't remember your history, but you can remember rules of grammar. Wolfman says that they've been patrolling the West, hoping they'd be the first to find them. He says the giant king will reward me when he rises. And he says that his name is Lycaon? You had looked up the pronunciation
so there's like 2 ways to say it. There's the Greek and the English.
There's a lot of ways to say it. There's 2 correct ways to say it.
There are incorrect ways to say it and correct ways to say it. Lycaon is like the animal, and I will not pronounce this correctly, but it's like Lichen is the like Greek or something like that. And we got this correct back there. It is no longer correct. That was 5 minutes ago. I can't remember 5 minutes ago. But yeah,
I'll ask Dr. Moya. I'll say Lycaon for now, unless anyone's like mad confident that they know how to say it. All right, we're all in the same boat. Right. Lycaon sounds great for the remainder of this episode. He says that his wolves are hungry. Piper sees Leo pull out his hammer and a glass bottle of some sort of clear liquid. And I was like, is Leo about to make a Molotov cocktail up in here? And I wasn't too far off. Piper tries to think of this guy's deal because she recognizes that name. Jason tells them to leave as there is no food for them here, but then Leo, ever the jokester, has to jump in to say, unless you want tofu burgers. Great. And then we get this quote, Lycaon bared his fangs. Apparently he wasn't a tofu fan. A+. Lycaon said if he had his way, he would kill Jason first because his father, Jupiter, made him this way. Quote, I was the powerful mortal king of Arcadia with 59 sons. 59? My dude, what, I mean, I'm assuming not one queen. He was just, okay.
But also, once again, 2 chapters in a row where it's the king of something.
Right? Yeah, King
Convenient.
Midas. Yep.
King of the snakes.
Convenient. But he had 59 sons, and Zeus slew all of them with his lightning bolts. And Hedge says, well, it was done for good reason. And then Jason glances over his shoulder and says, Coach, you know this clown? Oh, man. Oh, as a trash talk fan, that makes me so happy. Calling him a clown, A+. Calling him a clown while not looking at him? Oh, it's such a good insult. Say something mean about someone, but you're talking to someone else, but loud enough so that they can hear it. Oh, yes. Perfect. Jason, I'm so proud of you. Piper answers that she knows who he is. She finally remembered the myth. Quote, Lycaon invited Zeus to dinner, but the king wasn't sure it was really Zeus. So to test his powers, Lycaon tried to feed him human flesh. Now, what? Come on, what? Surely you could have done anything else at all. And like, how is Zeus? It was because he has a great palate. He'd be like, "This is from the thigh of a man." Like, what is this test?
So you'll have to talk to the doctor on this because it's been a while. I briefly taught Greek mythology.
Sure.
And if I remember correctly, it's like against their rules to like consume the things that they make or whatever.
Okay.
And so I think it was like an offense to the gods to like serve them human meat.
I mean, yeah, I think it would be an offense to anyone, probably. Fair.
Fair.
I just don't get. Surely you want to do something else, but Zeus got outraged, and then Lycaon finishes Piper's story and killed my sons. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that that's worthy, but like, if you're gonna, why would you go into an interaction with potentially Zeus and be like, well, I might piss him off. I'm sure he'll be reasonable about it. He's Zeus. The Lord of Reason? No, come on. So he says this, the wolves all howl, and then apparently Zeus turned him into a wolf, and that's why werewolves are called lycanthropes. They were named after him. Hedge and Lycaon then trash talk a bit to each other back and forth. Jason tells Hedge to stop and then asks Lycaon to continue because clearly there was a but following. If I had my way, I would kill you first. But so Jason wants him to finish what this is. And Lycaon says that Jason is spoken for. Since Piper has failed to kill him, Jason, is to be delivered alive to the Wolf House. So we have a name for this West Coast big house mansion rubble type thing, the Wolf House. One of his colleagues wants to kill him herself. So with herself, I was trying to think, okay, doesn't feel like Gaia, because I think the exact word he uses is compatriot. I don't think he would call Gaia his compatriot. Piper in a little bit thinks it must be Medea, that she's already back. I don't know, it feels like there would be someone else. So I'm wondering if it will be a new person we haven't met before. It could be Medea though, because of what happens in a bit. So Jason asks who, and Lycaon says an admirer of his. Lycaon is okay with it because spilling Jason's blood there will mark his new territory, and maybe Lupa will think twice about challenging his pack. Then Piper, as the narrator, thinks it must be Medea, and Piper tells them to leave before the team destroys the wolves. And she tries charm speaking, but she's too weak, so she was doing charmweaking, doesn't work. And then in response to this, Lycaon says, quote, a brave try, girl, I admire that. Perhaps I'll make your end quick. Only the son of Jupiter is needed alive. The rest of you, I'm afraid, are dinner. And Piper feels like, okay, well, yeah, this is how I die, but at least I die next to Jason, and he gave me a hug. Cool. Jason says that the Wolfman isn't killing anyone unless they get through him, and then Lycaon laughs because gold, bronze, steel, none of those things are going to be any good against the wolves. And then Piper goes, silver, aren't werewolves hurt by silver? And then Jason, you never do this, he goes, we don't have any silver. Come on, lie, Jason, lie. This sword is silver painted gold. Back off, everyone, like, lie, come on.
Look, Look,
Leo's holding a hammer. It's silver. It's Maxwell's silver hammer. Yeah, come on.
We know that he has forgotten a lot, so let's just assume he forgot battle strategy.
Yeah, that part of his memory, lying didn't make the cut. Yeah, true. So he says we don't have any silver. So then the wolves start like getting ready to fight because Jason has said like, we're defenseless, or I guess offenseless against them. So then Hedge jumps in and just yells woot. Don't know that he had a plan here, but he did yell woot, which is a good start. Leo throws his clear bottle, and then when it breaks open, it's clear that it's gasoline. So then he shoots a fire blast at it, and then a bunch of the wolves catch fire. Pretty smart. And then Leo, after doing this a little bit, does say that he can't spawn any more gas, but then immediately has to clarify, not that kind. I mean the gasoline. We need a plan.
Because they're teenagers and
of course
would find it too funny. But once again, giving everything away to the wolves. Hey guys, we're out of fire.
Right. It would be like a D&D character being like, I'm out of spell slots. I will only be able to use cantrips and ranged attacks from here on out. Or, like, no, you don't, just keep it zipped, guys. Come on. But then Jason says, okay, well, I can't use any of my weapons and my lightning powers aren't working. I get that it's a book and this is helpful for us, but it does feel like they are very much giving away all of the fighting strategy here. But then Piper has an idea. She says that they should unleash the Venti. And Jason doesn't know about that because then they'll have nothing to give to Aeolus, thinking we've gone through all this effort, we've come all this way for nothing. But then Lycaon laughs and says he can smell their fear. And he tells them to pray to whatever gods they wish. Zeus did not grant me mercy. I thought it was weird they called him Zeus here and not Jupiter.
Rick forgot.
Zeus did not grant me mercy, and you will have none from me. So the flames are starting to die out. Jason curses, doesn't say what it is, drops his sword, and then he crouches like he's ready to go hand to hand. Leo's got his hammer ready to go. Piper raises her dagger, not very well because she's still very woozy. Coach Hedge has his club ready, and he's the only one that looks excited, which is fantastic. But then there's a ripping sound that cuts through the wind. Quote, like a piece of tearing cardboard. A great analogy that I would never associate with wind, but like I kind of get it.
No,
yeah.
That's you now know the sound.
Yeah,
and I can't wait for the Disney show to get to this point. He's just written how to make the sound for the Foley artists.
Yeah.
You'll just see the back.
It's good. It's really good. But they hear this, and then a long stick sprouts from the neck of the nearest wolf. And at first I was thinking, like, did Hedge do something really cool? But
nature magic?
When it said stick sprouted, I was like, whoa, like, what did he do? But it didn't really sprout. It's more of not realizing what it is. It's the shaft of a silver arrow. And I was like, the hunters, let's go. So the wolf falls, and then there's just more arrows and a bunch of wolves falling. The pack is confused. They're breaking. It is bedlam. There's an arrow that goes towards Lycaon, and the Wolf King catches it in midair, which is wild, but then he yells in pain because it's a silver arrow. I don't know, maybe he didn't realize, that could be the only thing, is that he didn't realize they were silver, because it would be wild to be like, silver arrows? Oh no, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So then he gets hit with one in the shoulder. He gets one in the paw. Like, he's getting hit a little bit more, and then he yells out, curse them. And then he growls at his pack, and they all turn and run. But then Lycaon gives a glaring look to Jason, and he says, this isn't over, boy. I'll be back in chapter 42. Yeah, so they disappear, Lycaon with them. And then Piper hears more wolves baying. Do you know what baying is? I'm not well versed in wolves.
I don't have history in wolf studies. Mm-hmm. Don't question me on
I don't know.
this.
Does anyone? What's baying? It's like a howl. Okay.
Sure.
Cool. But it does
explain Beowulfing.
It says Piper, the exact quote from the book is, Piper heard more wolves baying, but the sound was different. Less threatening, more like hunting dogs on the scent. And I was like, oh, right. Artemis, the good wolves, nice. And then it says that a smaller white wolf enters the cave, and then there's two more behind it. Hedge asks if he can kill it, and Piper goes, no, wait. And then the wolves kind of look, and they have golden eyes. So that would at least be nicer, or they are Kronos wolves. Ah! But then the masters of the wolves appear. It is the hunters. They are in white and gray winter camouflage, which I love that the hunters consistently have the coolest outfits. They just have the freshest fits always. There's at least 6 of them here. They all have bows, and they've got arrows on their back, and their faces are covered in their parka hoods. Narrator Piper can tell that they are all girls, but one is just slightly taller than the rest, and that taller one is crouched in the firelight and snatches up the arrow that had wounded Lycaon's hand. And then she says, quote, "So close. Phoebe, stay with me." And I was like, oh, Phoebe's back. Hey, she's doing okay. Stay with me. Watch the entrance. The rest of you, follow Lycaon. We can't lose him now. I'll catch up with you. And the other hunters mumbled in agreement, and then they disappear going after the pack. And at this point, I'm like, okay, there's 2 options here for slightly taller one. It's either Thalia or Artemis. I feel like it's going to be Thalia, but I don't know her height stats, so I wasn't confident. But she then turns towards our team, still can't see her face, which of course is just for the purposes of dramatic reveal. She says, cool, we've been following that demon's trail for over a week. Is everyone all right? No one got bit. And then Jason is just frozen, not literally, figuratively. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's got to be Thalia here. And then Piper realizes that her voice sounds familiar, saying that it was hard to pin down, but it, just like the way that she speaks, the way she forms her words, it reminds her of Jason.
Of how Jason talks, which, I mean, sure.
Sometimes siblings
talk similarly.
Right, not always, but sometimes they definitely do.
But she was like on the run for ages. There is no way that this boy, who has a completely different life, talked so close that she recognized the cadence of Thalia's voice.
Yeah, I think that tracks because I would say that me and my sister don't talk very similarly, and she definitely talks more Northeastish because when we moved to Texas, I was graduating 8th grade, she was graduating high school, and then she went to college in Philly. So she kept like more Northeasty, and then I went to Texas, got made fun of for my Northeast accent. So then I was like, I will talk in vague nothing accent, and now I am the person I am today. But she still will like say like water instead of water, and I'm like, oh God, she's my sister.
and it's just like that. If only your sister learned Greek. And you learned Latin. And that's the difference.
So Piper just goes, you're her. You're Thalia. And then this girl tenses up, so that gives it quite away. And then Piper is afraid that she's going to shoot her, but instead she pulls down her hood, and then we see her spiky black hair, and she has a silver tiara across her brow. And then, quote, her face had a super healthy glow to it, as if she were a little more than human, and her eyes were brilliant blue. She was the girl from Jason's photograph. And Thalia, great response, goes, do I know you? Yes. And then Piper kind of tees it up. She goes, this might be a bit of a shock, but, and then Jason just goes, Thalia, I'm Jason, your brother. And that's the end of that chapter. And it's the end of this episode so far.
Which
I
is
just
wild.
I love that Jason just, Thalia. Oh, so good, so good. We don't see the reaction. Obviously, that's going to be the beginning of the next chapter, which, of course, are from Leo's perspective, which is such a funny move by Rick to be like, this important, impactful reveal. We're going to have them finally get reunited, and then who's going to be the next narrator? Leo. I have not seen the opening line, but I'm sure it's going to be like, whoa, awkward! Like, it's gonna be something completely strange, and it's so perfect. I don't know if it was intentional, I don't know if it just lined up, but whatever has granted us Leo being the narrator for these very important chapters is so funny, and I'm very excited for what lies ahead.
We will know nothing about what Jason is thinking for this entire chapter.
Two chapters consecutively, believe me, I'm like,
what's this guy doing?
Jason seems confused.
I love that in the previous chapter, there was this beautiful quote that was Piper remembering, the hunters are heading to the west. Do you think they'll be around here? Which is the most, like, now that we have read through this part, the most revealing. Like, oh, will the hunters be here? Yeah. Maybe.
It's good. It's good. I'm happy they're here. I'm excited to see what happens. They needed, like, some sort of help to get the job done. Now maybe, like, the hunters can go to one destination. Like, they can go try to save Piper's dad. That's good. I forgot about that being an option, so that's cool. Do you have a chapter title for 34? Because I have one that I'm really excited about.
Yeah. Yes.
Mine is, this is the skin of a killer.
So we were talking about Hades earlier. So one instantly popped up with I take the boon, support fire.
Oh, support fire is good depending on the weapon. You can't always take support fire. Players of Hades, the video game.
For those that haven't played Hades, support fire, whenever you try to attack or attack hits or a cast or whatever, arrows from Artemis appear out of nowhere.
Every time you land one attack, an arrow comes. So if you're doing a thing that's like rapid fire, that's good. But if you're doing something that is slow hits, not a good one to take.
So if you're in a circle and there's a bunch of wolves and all of a sudden you're trying to attack them and all of a sudden Artemis's arrows appear out of nowhere. The other is I met a tree with silver arrows.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was like way too obvious for like that would. I don't know that we could pick it. I love the humor of it though. But I think the first one is good, taking the boon of support fire. That's pretty good. Cool. All right. Well, if you're listening to the podcast now, we'll take another quick break and then we'll get into the Q&A.
Hello, Mike popping in one more time before we get into the Q&A. A very fun Q&A, but before we get into that, because this is a longer episode, you're going to hear words from a few sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Again, some will be read by me and others of them won't be. And once they are complete, we will conclude this episode of the News Olympian with the very fun Q&A section.
So, some people send in questions. You can still send them more to thenewsolympian@gmail.com if you would like. This first one is from Sam. The subject line, very Olympics themed as we record this on August 3rd. Chiron would 100% win gold in equestrian. Yes. I am very excited to watch the equestrian highlights. Gosh, I love watching the sports I don't really understand in the Olympics. It's great. So, Sam says, hi, Mike, longtime listener, first-time emailer. Your podcasts have been burning my week since New Year's Eve 2019/New Year's 2020, and I'm so glad I could finally make it to a live show. Did you wish for 2020 to be a good year? My question is, if the Heroes of Olympus/PJO trios were competing in the Summer Olympics right now, what sport would each be competing in? P.S. I work in a soil lab, digging, looking for roots and rocks in soil, hoping or dreading that one day I can see the dirt woman in the flesh, or should I say dirt? See you later, Sam. Great. Okay, so let's start with Percy Jackson ones. Percy is going to compete, but he might still lose to Katie Ledecky, because 9 gold medals? Come on!
Let's go!
Oh! Unreal! She's so good!
I just feel like he's a sportsy kid.
Oh, so does he do water polo? Yeah, that'd be fun. I would love to see him in water polo. Yeah, that'd be good. And then that would be good for America, because we got swimming covered. We're good. But water polo, we could use someone just destroying, so that would be great. Annabeth would definitely be what would she be in? I mean, Thalia's going to be in the shooting one, but I don't know if she's going to be able to compete with incredibly attractive Korean woman with all the cool stuff, or Turkish dude with like. Dude. I saw a tweet that said like the two of them should be in a movie where like he's her trainer coming out of retirement for one last job. Oh my God, it'd be so good.
What do you think Talia's skill with an epee would be?
Oh, Thalia or Annabeth?
Thalia.
I don't think she's more bow and arrow. Annabeth, I guess
Annabeth.
Annabeth with a dagger. Yeah, I would say, as someone who did take fencing in college, that could be the new item in high school. She would do saber, because saber feels more like swordy.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a dagger, but like foil, you gotta like poke. Or saber, you're allowed to do hits like this. Yeah. So I could see her doing fencing. And then Grover? What is the plantiest? I mean, gosh. What is the most nature?
I feel like.
Well, maybe, no, you know what? He actually might be very good at equestrian, because he can like commune with animals. And that whole thing is like telling, maybe specifically he would do dressage of like, because like pan flute, right? Yeah. So he's like playing music for the horse as it does the dances and stuff. I could see that being the thing.
I mean, dressage would be great, but like too warlike, right? Like, dressage's history is all war. I feel like he would not respect the horses that did dressage. Oh. So my thought is he has the perfect feet for bicycling.
Oh.
I think the hooves just...
Now here's another thought. Would he be really good at race walking? Like that one where you have to always keep one on the ground, like the goat legs. I feel like he might have an extra stretch. He might be really good at that.
He already kind of has a hop to his step.
But you can't. That's the whole rule, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
1 foot always has to be on the ground. It's tricky. It's
is.
tricky.
He's a hard one.
He's a tough one. All right, let's try Heroes of Olympus ones. Jason, what's the most American sport that's in the Olympics?
I mean, it's
NFL football is not there. Baseball used to be. It's not anymore.
spear throwing.
Oh yeah, javelin. You're right.
Javelin.
Correct.
Yes.
And then Piper.
Singing.
Is she the? Yeah, I don't know. What do you do with charm speak? What do you do with beauty?
Okay,
What do you do with Aphrodite? Rhythmic gymnastics.
Yeah.
Rhythmic gymnastics. That's fun. Or like a synchronized dive or something. 'Cause it's all about the artistry.
Yeah, and you could just be like, I did really good to the judges, and they would be like, you did really good.
No, yeah. That's true. She would have to be in a judge-based one. Yeah. No, rhythmic gymnastics I think is good. She'd be good with, ribbon dancing and the ball. Mm-hmm. And then Leo, fire stuff. Anything with like tinkering. Is there anything that involves, or I guess, I don't know, maybe the shooting. I'm trying to think of anything that like has like more like technical equipment.
He would rig a shot put to go really far.
But I mean, I'm sure they would see him using some sort of tech since you're just supposed to use your hand.
Yeah, but hear me out. He would like rig the balls with whatever robotics he used to control the arms.
Okay.
And
So
then they would
cheating.
just fly
He's
away.
just
He's cheating.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
He's cheating. Good. Alrighty. This one is from, is it Shwetha? Cool. Shwetha says, hey, Mike, my question is, if the cities in the the subject line is Dionysus is the father of Las Vegas. Great. My question is, if the cities in the Bay Area were demigods, who would their godly parents be? Berkeley, Oakland, SF, Marin, etc. P.S. My newly purchased poster is going to find a home between my Kobe Bryant poster and a Shark Week poster. What great company! Keep calm and wizard on. Okay, so Bay Area cities are demigods. Who would their parents be? My goodness. This is where all the different people are going to get mad at the mean things I say. Oakland, just because of the logo being a tree, I want to say Artemis. Just feels like, with the tree logo, the nature, that feels right to me. San Francisco, I don't know, who's the tech bro god? Like, Hermes?
Yeah.
Messaging and stuff? Marin, I could see, who's the fanciest, wealthiest? Zeus, maybe, of like, oh, Marin, you have to pay a toll to get to our town. Bleh. And then Berkeley, I don't know. I feel like Berkeley is some fun vibes. I also, Dionysus feels like a Berkeley vibe to me. That would be my
Berkeley
pick.
bros hang out with Dionysus.
Sure, yeah. And I'll just end it so I don't piss off anyone else. This one is from Zachary. Zachary says, hello, Mike. I hope you're enjoying your revisit to California. My question is, in honor of finding a mouse in my apartment today and freaking out, how do you think the Percy Jackson characters would respond to finding a rodent or mouse in their own places? Love you so much. Great show so far. Okay. Percy Jackson characters. Grover would befriend it.
Yep.
Leo would befriend it. Would give it some food.
Hedge would murder it.
Probably.
For being there.
Yeah. He would be like, food chain!
And then freak out about its flesh.
Yeah. I think Annabeth would try to like trap it and set it free kind of thing. And then, I don't know how Percy and Jason would go. I'm not sure. Jason doesn't seem like the type like he would try to kill it. I feel like he might also try to set it free. Percy, I think, would like try to kill it, but wouldn't successfully do it. Like he would like wreck his entire house trying to beat it. He would be Tom to Jerry in this situation.
I almost feel like Jason would ignore it. He would just be like,
I don't know. I got to figure out who I got bigger fish to fry. Who am I? Where did I come from? How old am I? What's happening?
Maybe this is a friend from the past. He'd start speaking Latin to
Dad?
it.
Yeah. All right, this one is from Patricia. The subject line, light the beam. So Patricia's from Sacramento. Go Kings. Hi, Mike. Thanks for stopping in California. Would love to have a live show in Sacramento. I want to do a live show in Sacramento at some point, so stay tuned for the future. My question, what flavor Gatorade would you assign to each Percy Jackson character? Thanks for being a part of the commute, Patricia. So, flavors of Gatorade. This is like, I don't know if it's super niche, but I have like opinions about flavors of Gatorade. So, Jason's going to be lemon lime because he's American and that's the standard flavor. Percy's going to be cool blue, obviously. And he would still like all of the other flavors like Cascade Crash, dark blue, Riptide Rush, light blue. Or no, sorry, Glacier Freeze, light blue. Riptide Rush is the off purple one, sorry.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. You know this better than I. There is, what I remember, some, like, rain was in the title. It's like a light pink.
Oh, yeah, they did a brief, I love Gatorade Rain. I was very sad when it got discontinued.
It was so good.
Very sad when it got discontinued.
The light pink Gatorade Rain is Piper.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, I like that. It's good because it's like subtle, but like still flavorful. Yeah, that's good. Pink also feels Aphrodite-esque. And then, let's see. I feel like Thalia would be like fierce purple because it's the darkest one. So it's the closest to being goth. It's the most hot topic flavor of Gatorade. And then Grover also feels like orange. Like that just feels like the fruitiest of the Gatorade flavors. So that feels like the most nature. Like
so you're saying
savory.
All satyrs are just orange?
It just feels like orange is the Gatorade you drink when you're sick. Like, or when you're really dehydrated, at least that's for me. Like, fruit punch is Gatorade you drink at lunch. Yeah. Lemon lime is you drink playing sports. Orange is you drink when you're not feeling well. Blue is when you drink during road trips. Yeah. Like, every color has a flavor.
So if your favorite color's orange, Gatorade-wise, Mike is saying you may be a fawn or satyr.
No, it's just orange is like, it tastes, orange just tastes, is the most believable to be like, well, this is healthy, right? Because I guess it tastes the closest to like oranges, or the other ones are like, oh yeah, this tastes like blue, and this tastes like red, and this tastes like purple. Whereas like the orange one actually does taste like a citrus fruit. So you're like, this is good for me. All right. So this one is from Theo. Theo says, hi, my name is Theodora, and I'm loving the show so far. I work at Tara's Organic Ice Cream on College and Alcatraz in Berkeley. Come by, and we have many interesting and unique flavors. If you could assign Piper, Jason, Leo, and Hedge an unconventional ice cream flavor, what would it be? Ooh, unconventional ice cream flavors for these folks. I feel like Hedge, being a satyr, would probably have one of those like weird salt and straw flavors where it's like pears and goat cheese.
Or everything he makes is mushroom and Gatorade.
I was going to say mushroom and Gatorade, pretty good. That would be pretty good. Certainly like that. Leo, I would think he would, it seems like he enjoys cooking with spice. I feel like he would have some sort of like spicy ice cream, which is really good. So either like a chocolate with like cayenne or something like that. And then, let's see, Piper, we know she's vegetarian. She's got the fancy stuff going on.
Peanut butter.
Oh, she does love peanut butter and jelly as her sandwich. So yeah, I mean, that seems unconventional enough to try to have like
peanut butter ice cream with strawberries or on
like
top.
Or with like a strawberry like, you know, gel glaze kind of thing. Jason, you've asked me to say unconventional. I was going to be like chocolate because he's American. Oh, you know, maybe he, because of the lightning stuff, I've had some ice cream before that has like Pop Rocks in it. So I could see him having like chocolate because he's American with Pop Rocks in it because he's Lightning Boy. And then you get the little like zaps. So that would be my thought there. This one is from Kiko. Hi, Mike. Big fan since you started the Potterless. I was just a high schooler then. And now I'm a third-year grad student in Berkeley. Oh, God. I'm so old. Oh, no. Time flies. You say you've never watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, this show. Correct. New podcast series once you finish the Arrowverse. That is the, like, if there ever is another one of these, it's that. But there's so many books and so much content. Like, I might be okay, but, like, if there is another one, I'm going to do it. So that is there. If you were a bender, what would you be? So it's what? Water, earth, wind, fire, and wind?
And wind.
No heart? No. Okay.
No.
I would go water. I grew up going to the Jersey Shore a lot. I feel confident in the water, so I think that's what I would do. Do you have a bending that you would do?
Ooh, mine spoils something later in those series, so no.
There's a new bender? Whoa! Heart bender, Mati, you're here. You guys not watch Captain Planet? Okay, so there's this TV show called Captain Planet.
There were 5 rings.
Oh, gosh.
One of them.
My audience slightly younger
heart.
than me. No. Okay, this one is from Tala. Tala says, if you were camp director for a day, what would you do and how would the basketball tournament you organized work? Also, I'm from Sacramento area. I don't know if we have beef with Berkeley. If we do, I've never heard of it. Fantastic. I don't think there's any beef. I've never heard any of that beef. So yeah, if I was camp director for a day, I mean, basketball tournament does sound quite likely. I mean, we would at least have to play knockout. It's just a classic like camp game, and even if you don't play basketball, you can still have a good time playing knockout because there's so much like randomness and chance, and it's goofy enough. So I could see myself doing that. I would definitely just want to do a game of capture the flag because I love capture the flag. So then playing capture the flag was fun. Maybe I would like put a twist on it and do a game of manhunt because I loved playing manhunt growing up in Jersey. So that could be a fun time. I feel like that would be that. What would you do if you were the camp director?
I love
for a day?
Ultimate.
Okay.
I think
Yeah,
Ultimate Frisbee may be one of the better camp activities. And I think, once again, like capture the flag of some sort.
Sure.
I think it is wrong that they didn't include the camp, right? They were just in the woods. I want to see capture the flag in whatever that weird tower in the second movie is. One team defending the tower with lava flowing down it.
Yeah.
And the other team has to sneak up the tower with lava flowing down
Look,
it.
that sounds like a fun time. I dig it. Okay, this one is from Karina. Karina says, "Hi, Mike. I'm a longtime fan and started listening to Potter Roast around when episode 4 came out. Whoa, deep cut. And I'm stoked to be here. My question is, if you went on a quest, what non-essential things would you bring?" So you're going on a quest, you got to bring some stuff that's like not crucial, but you want to have there. I'm trying to think of like things that I pack when I'm like, I got to make sure I got it. I would definitely bring a pair of sunglasses just because anytime I've ever not brought sunglasses on a trip, I have certainly needed sunglasses. It depends on like how much room I have because I'm probably just trying to fit something in a backpack, right? So I have to bring like something that's small and compact enough. I don't know. Do you have any initial thoughts? I'm trying to rack my brain here.
When I travel, I have a backpack that I always travel with. And this backpack has a beautiful slot in the back. In that, I always have 2 sizes of Rubik's Cubes.
Okay, nice.
A deck of playing cards. A Kermit the Frog puppet.
Okay.
And then a pair of glasses.
Any story for Kermit the Frog or just...
I mean...
If it's long and personal, you don't have to say it.
No. I used to do the voice of Kermit the Frog for like a Houston radio station way back in the day. And, you want me to do it?
Why are there so many songs about rainbows and what's on the other side?
That's great. My main Kermit the Frog thing is just when Kelly and I listen to Megan Thee Stallion, I just go, Megan Thee Stallion here.
Megan Thee Stallion.
Megan Thee Stallion here.
I mean...
Yours was way better.
Oh, thanks.
That's good. Other than I'm just thinking of like the things that I like sometimes forget to pack and I'm mad. Like if I don't bring hand sanitizer and I get something on my fingers, I'm like, oh no, my hands are dirty. That gets annoying.
Hand sanitizer, deodorant, these are must-haves.
Hairbrush. Thank you. That's good. No, I always do not like full hairbrush, but I usually do have like a smaller comb like that I can fit into a back pocket. That is usually in the bag there. So yeah, I would definitely. And then also what usually is the thing when I'm packing more is like, no matter how long the trip is, I will just fill my suitcase to the brim because like, what if I need this? And it's just going to have every possible iteration of like, if it's like kind of cold, I want this sweatshirt, but if it's not, I want this cardigan. Like I would just have all these different like weather related, all these different types of jackets and stuff. Yeah. But let's continue onward. This one is from Emma. Emma says, my 17th birthday's in 5 days. Yay, live show. Happy almost birthday. Hello, Mike. Hope you had a good flight here. I did. I slept the whole time. It was nice. I have a few questions, so take your pick. Let's do them all. 1, what sports would our main characters love to watch and play? Jason will love football because he's American. Leo, I feel like soccer feels like a sport that he would be into.
But specifically, Rocket League.
Oh, Rocket League, very good.
It's the mix of soccer and cars.
Yeah, it's
it would
good.
be his favorite.
Piper, favorite sport? I'm not really sure. She's from California. Ice skating. Ooh, snowboard. Oh, yeah, snowboarding jacket. Yeah, snowboarding. Yeah, true. 2, what would be Jason, Piper, and Leo's favorite ice cream flavors? Well, we've done it. We've nailed it. 3, what was your favorite restaurant when you lived here? Easy answer. Curry Up Now, which is in San Francisco. My buddy Sal is laughing because we went there many a times. And Sal's wife, who is Indian, does not enjoy that we like it so much. But it is a great place. Like, it used to be more of like Indian Mexican fusion. Now it's kind of gone more into like fast casual Indian. It's still good, but I think it used to be it was like a little more fun in what it was going for, but the food is still solid.
It is also a chain.
Yes,
So-
they are trying to expand.
Yeah. So like there's one in Dallas as well.
Oh, what?
where
They're
I
that
came from.
far?
Yeah.
What have I been doing with my
I
life?
know.
Okay.
But their joke is always like slightly inappropriate naming of things. So like naughty non.
Right, yeah.
and,
Sexy
like,
fries. Yeah. But I definitely ate there quite a bit when I lived
Delicious.
here. It's a good spot. And then I referenced it earlier, but like C.R.E.A.M was always a good dessert spot, but like now it's like way more expensive than it was. Part of the joy of C.R.E.A.M is that it was like $3 if you went to the Berkeley location, and now it's like $7 at least, which is less ideal. I'm trying to think if there's any other restaurants I went to a lot. Not much. I cooked a lot when I was here. And also went to C.R.E.A.M now a lot. So that would be that. Hope the rest of your live show goes well. And thank you for making the mornings before school entertaining. Of course, yeah. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. This is high praise from Kathy. The Simone Biles of PJO questions. This better be the greatest question of all time. Oh, okay. If the PJO characters were participating in the 24 Olympics, what other sports are they doing? Cool. Done it. Nailed it. Another Sacramento person. Sacramento showing up. I should do a Sacramento show. Wow. All right. Note taken. I should do a show in Sacramento. Okay, this one is from Aiden. This is my first time on one of these shows, and I was wondering if you had to give the Olympian god your choice a nickname. Given an Olympian god of your choice a nickname like Dirt Woman that the crew have made for Gaia, which god would it be? So you're given just like a semi-disrespectful, very sort of like direct to the point nickname to an Olympian god. Trying to think of like one that specifically is kind of annoying in the books so that it feels... Oh, I would call Dionysus Buzzkill since he's supposed to be the party god, but he's so grumpy when he's Mr. D. Do you have one?
I mean, I just think of what we always used to call Poseidon, which was Broseidon.
Broseidon.
King of the Brosian?
Oh, okay, this is great. Here we go. This one's from Yolene. Welcome back to the East Bay. How much do you love Berkeley Bowl? I love Berkeley Bowl. It's a great grocery store. If you've never been,
No.
I hope it's still good. At least when I lived here 10 years ago, it was great. It was just like at least at that time, it was Whole Foods, but not as expensive and stuff. But I remember being able to like roll in and get avocados for like $1 max. I remember I had a friend coming over for dinner and he was vegetarian and I had never really cooked anything vegetarian. So I looked up a recipe for tofu tacos and I had to get... Say again?
Not burgers.
Not burgers, tofu tacos. And they actually ended up being really good. So I went to get the tofu from Berkeley Bowl, and it was the wildest thing because it was the first time I had ever seen, like, I had called it free-range tofu because it was like a big plastic jug that you took a lid off and it had just like, you know, like tofu is in like liquid. It was just like that with all the cubes, like the big squares of tofu in it. Like you're picking a lobster out of a lobster tank, but it was tofu. So I remember like distinctly like grabbing some of those and putting it into a bag. I was like, this is bizarre, but it was really good. But I really liked Berkeley Bowl. I would go there for like a bunch of groceries. They had a bunch of like different meats that you could get, which was cool. And then they had a bunch of like interesting produce and like even interesting grains. It was the first time I ever had farro was at Berkeley Bowl. So I very much enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. I love a grocery store. I don't know if it's like bad and expensive now, but at least in my heyday, it was great and tasty. It's great. Yay! This one is from Himani. Hi, Shoobs. I'm finally in the same place as when a live show is. I've missed you by a day 3 different times. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. The gods of scheduling, but I'm glad we're here. Congrats on the news, Olympian. Question. Who do you think would be the easiest monster/villain to fight? Who would be the funniest? And who do you think would kill you? I like that it's not who's the hardest. It's just who would you lose to? Okay, easiest monster or villain to fight. I mean, they put down Krusty quite quickly. They did quite well with him. He didn't seem like a tough fight. So potentially Krusty. As far as the funniest, did anyone have like cool jokes? Hades, they didn't really have to fight him though. He had some like good quips. I don't remember any villains being like particularly hilarious.
I feel like Ares tried.
Oh, yeah, Ares would be a fun one.
Yeah.
And then who would definitely kill me? I feel like I would do quite poorly against Medusa because having to do in a mirror, I'm never really good with the like looking in a mirror and being like left, right, left, what, huh? Like I feel like I would be very confused being like, she's over this shoulder, so do I go that way? I think I wouldn't do well. And it's also that thing of like, when you see a don't touch the grass sign, I'm like, oh, I gotta touch the grass. So like if the whole thing was like, don't look at her, I would be so tempted to look at her. So I feel like I would not fare well there. What about you?
Her and basilisks are my worst nightmares.
Yeah, it'd be terrible.
Like I just want to look. Like, I want to see it.
Right.
I mean, Luke. Luke is the easiest. Like, how many times, if Percy wasn't alone, would Luke have been just destroyed? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like Luke doesn't pre-plan much unless someone else is doing the planning.
Yeah, I don't know. He didn't have a lot of foresight if he couldn't see that working with Kronos would eventually lead to what happened. The email continues. Also, I've got only one more week in the Bay Area. What do you recommend doing? Is it too late to go to HOODSLAM? Did HOODSLAM already happen this month? Does no one know what HOODSLAM is? HOODSLAM is, at least when I lived here, it was a once-a-month wrestling event that happened in Oakland in like a warehouse. And it's fantastic. One of the wrestlers is a guy called Drugs Bunny who dresses up like a 1930s gangster and wears like pinstripe suit and suspenders and a bunny nose, and then he does cocaine, it's just like powdered sugar, on the pole before fighting, and then he fights and he's like the main hero, at least when I lived here, and it was great. I can't recommend. HOODSLAM was phenomenal. I did their vines. The exchange was I didn't have to pay for tickets and I would shoot vines for them, and then I would go to HOODSLAM like every single month with my buddy Sal, and it was fantastic. Can't recommend HOODSLAM enough. It's so good. It's so good.
I hope it still exists because I want to.
I hope it does. It was so fun. There were so many cool wrestlers. There's this guy, Virgil Flynn, whose signature move was doing like, how many flips did he do, Sal, before he would like land on people? Was it 3? Like, I feel like he would jump and do like 2 flips into like a land on someone, and that was like his finishing move. It was awesome. It was so cool.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, there were some really fun wrestlers.
I'll reach out to them and be like, do y'all need a Discord?
So yeah, if you have time to go to HOODSLAM, go to HOODSLAM. If not, there's like a bunch of really cool parks. I named them earlier, but like Corona Heights is really cool. Buena Vista is really cool. Land's End is awesome. All the parks are really fun. So I would highly recommend just going to as many of those as you can. Mount Diablo is a really good hike as well, and you can, if you don't have the time or the effort to hike up it, you can like drive almost all the way to the top with the lookout. So if you just want to get like a really cool view, but also be terrified the whole time because the road is just like, here's road, and then fall to your death. Like there's no guardrail. So that's like fun. So you can also do that.
And you can maybe see Golden Gate Bridge.
But jury's still out. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, how good is Piper's vision? Like, that's what we got to figure out to know what it is.
Specifically Piper's dream vision.
Yeah, true. Gosh, which like I'm never good at being able to see in dreams. So yeah. Okay, this is from Marissa. Marissa says, my 10-year-old son and I are happy to be at the show, and my son, who is a big Leo fan, has a question for you. Okay, obviously I'm going to end the show on answering the 10-year-old's question. This is very important, obviously. If you had Leo's magic tool belt, what do you think you would pull out the most besides a hairbrush? You got me. What I actually probably would do to go along with a hairbrush would be hair product, because an annoying thing is I do have like a travel thing of hair product, but it's still like kind of big, so if you stick it in my pocket, like it would stick out like annoyingly, and it's like a cylindrical thing, so it like looks strange, and I feel like it would be a weird thing where people would be like, well, you know, what's going on in his pocket there? It's not wallet shaped, it's not phone shaped, it's really jutting out. So if I could just continually like take it out of the tool belt and then not have to deal with like it awkwardly being in my pocket, I would do that. Especially if it could be like a small enough thing where I can just like reach in and just get like one fingerful and then like do that, and then reach in and get hand sanitizer to get the stickiness off my finger, and then reach in and get like a towel to rub off the hand sanitizer. Yeah, it would just be the entire hair care routine.
I mean, like travel hair product is so expensive compared to like buying a big tub of it.
So here's what you do. This is what I do, and I did it for the show. You get the travel size of the thing you like, and then you get the big size of the thing you like, and then you just keep putting the big size into the small container. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, once again, Kermit the Frog. I keep answering the same question. And Kermit the Frog.
So then there's a PS for your guests. Speaking of enchiladas, try enchiladas at Juan's Place in Berkeley. So that sounds good. And then PPS. Funny that you lived in Berkeley and worked in Rodeo. I lived in Rodeo and worked in Berkeley. Your commute was better than mine. Yes, that is a fun anecdote to end on, is that, yeah, so I lived in Berkeley, worked in Rodeo, and it was a super easy commute because I was always going against traffic. But at the plant, you have a thing called a turnaround, which is when you like the plant all shuts down so that you can do repairs on things that like you can't access while the plant is operating. And you have to just like have people working all the time. So since I was the least senior person there, I was like overseeing the night shifts and stuff. So for a week, I had to do the night shifts. Now, the good thing about it was that the day the night shift started was on a Friday or a Thursday, right after the Golden State Warriors won the first NBA championship of the dynasty run, and the Knicks were actively tanking that year, so I was heavily invested in the Warriors. I went to a bunch of games, and I remember my boss being like, Mike, I'm really sorry, but like, we need someone to oversee the night shifts. I think you can do it, blah, blah, blah. Like, and he was saying like, you'd have to come in on Friday, but like you wouldn't have to work Friday during the day. And in my brain, I was like, oh, cool. I can go to the championship parade, which is at noon on Friday. So I was like, you know what, boss? Like, I think it's fine. You know, I'll tough it out. Like, I'll put up with it. So it was great is that I started that. But then, yeah, I did this for a full week. So I would work from like, 6 p.m. until like 6 a.m. or something, or 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Basically, I was driving home when everyone else was driving from Rodeo into San Francisco. So I've just worked like a 12-hour shift overnight. I'm tired as hell. I'm doing a whole bunch of work. And then I have to sit in commuter traffic. And the whole time I'm like, no, I'm going home. I shouldn't have the traffic. Like, this is wrong. It was awful. So for 1 week, I understood the pain of all the people like stuck in bumper to bumper that I would drive past with an ear-to-ear smile on every single day going to work. I was like, I've seen the other side. It sucks so much. And that was my time where I had to understand your commute. So yes, I get it. And that's the end of the show. Thank you all so much for coming out to the show. I really do appreciate it. Give yourselves a round of applause for making it out. So many people. We absolutely packed the house. That's very cool. Give it up to Kevin for being an incredible guest. Give it up to Lexi for helping out, running the merch table. Give it up to Kim for making the incredible poster that we have here. Give it up to my buddy Sal, who's letting me crash at his place, and that is very helpful. He also took some pictures of the show, so that was very cool. And then also a shout out to everyone here at the venue. Nick and Gary were very cool with sound and hospitality, and everyone here has been super nice. So give it up to everyone here at Cornerstone for being absolutely lovely. And I think that's all the people that I need to thank. If I missed anyone, I'm sorry, but I really do appreciate it. Thank you all so much for coming. I'll have to come back to the East Bay at some point in time, or Sacramento maybe, for all the Sacramento people that really want it. You all can make the commute up and feel their pain and whatever. But until I make a return, I'll Percy you later. Thanks so much for coming out, everybody!
Hello, thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamontes and Brandon Grugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you can't get enough of the podcast, you can get involved in a couple of different ways. First, you can support us on Patreon, where you get bonus content. You can go to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. You can also find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can go to our website, thenewestolympian.com, to learn more about the show. You can check out live shows that we've got coming near you at thenewestolympian.com/live. You can check out our merch page at thenewestolympian.com/merch. That's also where the TNO coffee lives. And for community stuff, we have a subreddit where you can chat with folks, reddit.com/r/thenewestolympian. And we also have the Discord, which is accessible to all folks on Patreon. Speaking of the Patreon, I want to give a shout out to our folks producing at the highest tier, our producer level patrons. Shout out to Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Veronica Bartova, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Polly Burridge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Sayer, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Ashton Gabrielson, Marco Redhouse, Sam Reeby, Riley Kittis, Mrs. O'Leary, Milo Kim, Sandkopf, Julie Kendall, Rike, John Drillsma, Rayla Matthews, Sky Mallory, Persasabeth, Aiden Parziani, King Bastion, One Damn Distraction coming up, Ginger Spursboy, A Cup of Solace, Meg Roy, Bradimus Prime, Skylar Sisters, Scott Sheldon, Sophie, Natanya Page, Ann M. Thayer Cohen, Finley McLeod, Sarah Elise Arnson, Bella, Hayden Neal, Percy Jackson, Han Haley Hingleheimer Schmidt, Catherine Sloan, Jessica Phillips, Haley Mary, Jim Jam Koopy, and Kit Cruz. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, word of mouth helps the show so much. Whether you post about the show on social media, or you reach out to someone directly, someone who you know is a big Percy Jackson fan, or someone you've been trying to convince to get into the Percy Jackson books, saying, hey, there's this podcast that's called The Newest Olympian. It's really good. You should check it out. Also, you could leave the show a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. Whatever you do to spread the word of the show really does help. I'm appreciative to anyone who has done it in the past, and I'm appreciative to anyone who will do it in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tune into our next episode, where we'll be joined by Sherry Guo to break down chapters 35 and 36 of The Lost Hero. But until then, I'll see you later. Hey, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mix. So I am back in the studio here, and I have a pair of scissors that I use to cut up labels and stuff when I'm mailing things out to patrons. So here's me opening and closing the scissors a couple of times. Thank you for listening.